Welcome back. Happy Wednesday. Joey Richards has been kicked off the podcast. I'm kidding. Bree Maestas, Zach Seegers. Joey's not here tonight, but we're going to do our best to fill his shoes. Zach, we're going to hop right into it. New Jumbotron for the Denver Broncos. Listen, the old one was big. This one's absolutely massive. It wasn't ready in time or wasn't utilized by the Taylor Swift takeover last Friday and Saturday, but it looks like they're running some testing. Tweet from Mike Kliss is what you're looking at right now from a passerby. Broncos turned on their new scoreboard for the first time yesterday. Impressive. It is impressive. Listen, my seats are nearby. I'm a little, I have that Final Destiny feeling sometimes when I think about how gigantic that scoreboard really is. I think they increased the size by something crazy like 70%. I don't know. It's gigantic. It's going to let us get an even closer look to the happenings on the field in 2023. How do you feel about the Jumbotron there, Zach?
I like it. I mean, I think I like what it stands for more than anything. I do think ownership, like investment in the franchise, is important. Like them actually caring about this team and how they do, and willing to just go all out. And I think this signifies that it's clear they intend to build a new stadium in the somewhat near future here. And despite that, they have invested an insane amount of money in the turf for that one game. They are now investing a lot of money in the Jumbotron for maybe like 2 years, maybe like 3, who knows how many. But hey, Samuel, I don't know. I like to see the commitment from ownership, I guess.
The commitment
will make that experience better. Sorry, Bree.
No, you're okay. The commitment from ownership has been felt since they took over. Obviously, putting in that new field just before the end of the season last year, putting in $100 million of stadium renovations. So this Jumbotron falls into that wavelength. It's nice. I think it's a nice upgrade. It would be interesting though for them to flip the switch and then in 2 years move to a whole new stadium. But I know that it takes some time. It's going to take some building efforts, but they did what they could in order to, I guess, put a facelift on Mile High Stadium. It's nice to see. It'll be interesting to feel the warmth. I would assume that they're elongating the path of fireworks and flames shooting out for the field goals and for touchdowns. Hopefully we see a lot of those in 2023. Now on to a little more interesting news. And this has been a very hot conversation in Broncos country, as we've had to basically have a conversation on what we've been talking about since Russell Wilson was traded to the Denver Broncos. An interesting statement from KJ Wright. He was on his podcast, I believe, just recently. KJ all day had some words for Denver's QB, Russell Wilson. He said, and we'll play a clip here, and then I'll talk about what he said.
I don't want to go viral with this. I really don't. But a few dudes that came on here, off record, on record, and has said what they've said or how they felt about number 3. When you play this game, when you go through this journey, it's all about the brothers. It's all about the brotherhood. And when it's all said and done, he got a lot of making up to do. He got a lot of phone calls to make. A lot of, hey, bro, I should have done better with that. And that's the God honest truth. I couldn't hold that in. I couldn't hold that inside, but he got a lot of making up to do.
So yeah,
on a serious note, he has to.
I hope he does.
This joins the myriad of topics of conversation from Russell Wilson's former teammates. Broncos country wants it to stop the narrative of trying to trash a former teammate, handle it offline. Obviously, this was reinvigorated when Russell Wilson attended Tyler Lockett's wedding recently and joined some of his former teammates. Wright said, I don't want this to go viral, but his point is interesting because I think where there's smoke, there's fire. There's obviously multiple sides of the story here, but when it comes to human nature, I feel like those who felt situations and circumstances a little bit differently than how we may view them or how Russell Wilson may view them, I think they're at every right to have this conversation, have it publicly if they choose to do so. Zach, I want to know, Does the timing of some of these statements, KJ Wright's or others, make you question their validity? Or as the start to the season starts and as it approaches, Russell Wilson has a lot of eyes on him. He's slated to have a comeback year. He's supposed to be improving a lot of things that went awry, and his past is coming back, or at least chasing him in the shadows there. Talk to me a little bit about what KJ Wright said and how you feel about those comments, or how you don't feel about those comments. What do you think it matters?
I mean, I don't know how much it really matters. I wish we could just take things for what they are, and I don't know, not make it a bigger deal than it has to be. I think it's clear that Russ rubs some teammates the wrong way. I think that's kind of undeniable at that point. I was thinking about this last night as this whole situation was kind of blowing up, and I made a tweet about it and people were getting mad at me. It's almost an identical situation with Aaron Rodgers. And we have no problem in Broncos country going, hey, maybe this guy isn't well liked by some of his teammates. Not all. I know some of Russ's teammates absolutely love the guy. But I don't know. Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson are the only quarterbacks where you have, 5 former teammates, which, 5 isn't a ton relative to how many players they've played with over the course of their careers, but it is a ton relative to what most quarterbacks have in the way of former teammates talking bad about them. So there's something to it for me. In the same way, I think there's something to it with Rodgers' teammates taking some issue with him on occasion. Do I think it matters a ton on Sundays? No. Like Michael Jordan, famously not a beloved teammate, right? Who cares? Dude was good at basketball. If Russell Wilson is Michael Jordan-like at football, it won't be an issue. If he's like 2022 Russell Wilson, it will be an issue. I will say this though. Sorry, I know I keep going. Like Russell Wilson's teammates can have an issue with him, and that doesn't mean that Russell Wilson is a bad guy. Like it's not Russell Wilson is bad. Also, these former teammates aren't handling this situation maturely. It doesn't have to be a binary. But I don't know. I think there's something there at this point. There's a lot out there.
There is a lot out there, and it keeps coming up, and it's new stories, or it's different versions, or it's different viewpoints and vantage points. And I think that's what's so important when we start talking about this is you're never going to get everyone to fall into the same method of thinking. You're always going to have fans and fans of other teams have their preconceived notions about Russell Wilson, the team, those within the fandom. I know that his antics or lack thereof have probably bothered them at some point. I think that's why we're here to have the conversation about this, because it matters. It matters first and foremost, how you outlined it, Zach, is that the wins, if the win column starts tallying up, this is going to be less of a topic of discussion. It doesn't mean that it's not going to exist. It just means it won't be the main storyline in the middle of July as we're approaching 2023. Samuel Castro has a wonderful point here. And if you want to have yours read live on the air, go over to the Mile High Sports YouTube or Facebook. We're happy to interact along with you. There's always haters on someone's success, and it's easy to point fingers when things go bad, but there just needs to be accountability on people's actions. Absolutely. I think that that is correct. Christopher Hart also said, I'm mad at Seegers. Zach said, why are you mad at me? I threw up a little banner that said, if you're mad at Zach, let us know. Go ahead, Zach. You're muted, Zach Seegers.
God damn it. I wanted to respond to Samuel's comment. There's always haters on someone's success. And I think yes, that's true. Certainly in the broader scope of things, there's going to be fans who hate successful players and yada, yada. We don't see a lot of former teammates talking bad about their quarterbacks. Okay, if we're saying people hate on their successful peers or coworkers or whatever. So Tom Brady, who's experienced far more success and also has played a lot more football and everything, why doesn't he have more stories than Russell Wilson? Why does he have so many fewer? I can't think of a single player that's had issue with Tom Brady. Peyton Manning, Another kind of similar era has been, super successful. Not really been an issue for him. The only other guy it's been an issue for is Aaron Rodgers. And we all agree that maybe Aaron Rodgers has some issues that makes him not likable with teammates. And I'll say this too. Being on the Broncos beat last season, going to practices every week, going to games and everything, I have heard stories that I'd say are like 100% true about Russell Wilson doing things that I don't think is, again, evil behavior or like this is a bad person or anything, but could be alienating, could be like construed as this guy's a little aloof and maybe rub some people the wrong way. Is it the end of the world? No, but I think we can acknowledge it and move on.
That's what we'll be doing here. I'm going to read Christopher Hart's comment because I think it is appropriate for exactly what we're talking about. Controversy helps amplify reach. We talk about it all the time in Broncos country. We see those outrageous tweets from certain corners of this atmosphere, and they are derived specifically to create more outreach and outrage for hot takes. Unfortunately, that type of negativity and drama is something people feed off of and they enjoy for the most part. That's right, Christopher Hart. Misery loves company. Also says, not sure why society is like that. Once you get the solution and the answer to that question, Christopher Hart, you got to sell it to people because I think everyone watching at home, listening to this podcast wants to know, why is society like that? But that'll get us into the meat of our conversation. Wanted to point out that it is Wednesday, and we thought we'd cover who are the biggest winners and losers from the Denver Broncos offseason, which includes heading into this offseason, we're right up against training camp. The rookies reported today. The first available training camp day to the public is going to be July 28th. If you got your tickets, if not, check back. They have outlined a program where people can surrender the tickets that they've already gotten. They're free, complimentary, and available on Ticketmaster, but they're all gobbled up. So 3,000 people attending each day, the 28th, the 31st, and then we'll get into all of that as well. But interesting enough, I think one of the biggest winners from the offseason has to be the rookies. I think what you're looking at here is a primed endeavor for the new era to hand pick their guys for exactly what they're looking at. So obviously Sean Payton and George Payton together made a decision to draft a lot of these guys. So I would have to think that the rookies are going to benefit the most here. You've got Marvin Mims coming in, who may just make a name for himself where he's not working off specifically off of special teams. I have my notes right here because I don't have them on my computer. But let's talk about finding himself higher up on the depth chart there. Drew Sanders being beloved by the staff and talked about at a very high rate. He could see a larger role and not just seeing special team snaps. Alex Forsythe, obviously don't believe he's going to be the starting center, but with Lloyd Cushenberry moving on next year, or possibly, I'm not saying it's 100%, but he is entering free agency. Why isn't Alex Forsythe the next shoe-in? If he was drafted, if he reaches his capability in year two, a big jump happens from your rookie year to your second season. I think he's a prime candidate to take over there, which is why I don't think the Broncos went after the center position too heavily. Riley Moss, a dynamic cornerback who you'd like to see have some early snaps here, and only because I believe he's a dynamic player who's going to be able to contribute exactly how Sean Payton sees fit. He's called him a prototype in his position. Plus, he's fast. Also, not to leave out J.L. Skinner, a concern on whether that pec injury would keep him from making a very loud entrance into the league. It looks like he'll avoid the PUP list, a little bit of a leak in Broncos country, something that we're not used to. He should be ready to go by training camp. Zach, talk to me. Do you think the rookies could be winners in 2023?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're definitely winners of the offseason because you finally have coaching stability. I mean, it seems, I guess it's always possible that Sean Payton shows up for a year or two, goes, this isn't my cup of tea and bolts, but he's not going to be fired anytime soon. He's going to be given every opportunity by this franchise to build the team in his vision. And the first steps of that are, one, this massive free agency investment, and two, the investment in this rookie class. Riley Moss, like you said. You have Damari Mathis already installed as the young starting corner, yet they spend one of their first picks in the draft on Riley Moss. Riley Moss is going to have the inside track, I would think, as a result, so long as he's a functional NFL player, to have that job moving forward. Applies to Drew Sanders at linebacker. I'll get more into that when I'm talking about some of my losers. Also applies to Cortland Sutton at wide receiver, I think, can be getting squeezed out by this rookie class. Also, I think something that has hampered the Broncos as they're trying to rebuild, get back to Super Bowl 50, has been the fact that this revolving door of coaches started out with Kubiak's unfortunate health issues and then some just poor hires along the way. This revolving door of coaches, every time you have a new coaching staff come in, you have new schemes, new philosophies, new ways of coaching these techniques, new things that coaching staff is desiring from these players. It just makes it harder for these players to pan out. Again, Damari Mathis was drafted by this last staff with a clear vision. Now you have a new staff coming in, and as a result, maybe that was like the best we see of Damari Mathis in a Broncos uniform was his rookie year. That would be really sad. You're supposed to keep building on that stuff. But that's what happens when you have a revolving door of staffs. That's something I think the 2023 rookie class won't have to worry about.
I think you're also going to see a shakeup on the defense as well. There's been a lot of talk of continuity between the defenses from the last couple of years to what Vance Joseph is going to do. However, it's probably going to be quite the departure that may benefit some of that up and coming talent from what was previously installed. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. Let's go into your winner, because I believe it's going to play off of this as well. The Broncos wide receiver group wins in the offseason heading into 2023. Why? Tell me.
Yeah, I think this is a big winner, in part because of the Sean Payton thing. You have a functional designer of the offense, right? Last year, you have Nathaniel Hackett. Before that, you have Pat Shurmur, who everyone couldn't stand, and rightfully so. He was terrible. Before that, you had Rich Scangarello, who has been a disaster since being with the Broncos. He went to the Eagles after that, right? That was the year Carson Wentz totally flamed out. After that, he goes back to the 49ers in like a lower level role, gets the Kentucky offensive coordinating job. Their offense craters, and Will Levis craters, and he has to, I don't know what he's doing now, but he wasn't a great offensive play caller. The 2018 Broncos with Vance Joseph, I think they had Bill Musgrave. I'm trying to look this up right now. Offensive coaches. Yeah, Bill Musgrave. The year before that, they had, I think, another washout. I don't even remember. It's been a revolving door, almost as painful and embarrassing as the one at quarterback. It's a serious problem for this team. It's no longer a problem with Sean Payton installed as the guy overseeing the offense. This thing is going to be well run. During his time with the Saints, the Sean Payton Drew Brees Saints had a top 10 offense. I think it's like 10 out of 12 years, something like that, all but 2 years. And the 2 years they didn't have a top 10 offense, the offense ranked 11th and 12th. This is in DVOA, which is a fantastic advanced analytic. All these wide receivers are going to be the beneficiaries of that. Also, Sean Payton is going to maximize Russell Wilson. We can debate until the cows come home about where that ceiling is. Some Broncos think he can, or Broncos fans think he can return to elite form. I think it's maybe more middle of the road Kirk Cousins-y. Wherever that max is, I think Sean Payton's going to return Russell Wilson to a maximized version of himself. And wide receivers benefit when the quarterback plays well.
Every single target is going to benefit. And a lot of those wide receivers are making comebacks from injuries. KJ Hamler is going to need to recoup not only from previous injuries, but new injuries. So it's an interesting concept to think that they are the winners of this offseason, because it remains to be seen whether or not there is a core four that existed previously. Tim Patrick returning may not be in the form that he was prior to injury, although there's a lot of emphasis around the league that he is absolutely going to be the number one target for Russell Wilson, the chemistry being undeniable there. It is an interesting concept, though, with Marvin Mims, as I was talking about in my winner, and Marvin Mims. Who do you see him competing with the most for a spot on this roster?
That's a good question. Nate Tice has been saying it's going to be Jerry Jeudy, because Jerry Judy's been used more as a vertical threat in the NFL, kind of surprisingly, and that's what Marvin Mims is going to be best at, kind of a downfield speed guy. And I get that to some extent. I just think what we saw from Jerry Jeudy last year in terms of a breakout, I don't think you're going to be taking that guy off the field any. I also think Jerry Jeudy, we forget this now, he looked awesome as an X down the stretch. He's been a Z for much of his NFL career and was good in that role. He looked awesome as an X. I think Tim Patrick and Courtland Sutton are more prototypical X's, but now you feel confident playing Jerry Jeudy in that role and him being productive in that role. As a result, I think you can have Marvin Mims, because you're not going to play Marvin Mims at the X. So I think you can still have Marvin Mims steal snaps away from the slot, steal snaps away from that Z receiver, and have those snaps not come from Jerry Jeudy. Have them come from Courtland Sutton and have them come from Tim Patrick. And I think that makes the most sense. Courtland Sutton was not as good as Jerry Jeudy last year. He was the lesser of the two receivers, so that would be the guy I'd want to be taking snaps away from. I think while they picked up Jerry Jeudy's fifth-year option, so he's going to be on the team in 2024, there's a very good chance I think they cut Courtland Sutton or trade him after this offseason, and he's not around long-term with the team. So that's another reason maybe you downplay his snap count. Yeah, I would take the snaps from there, not from Jeudy.
Very interesting. One thing that I am looking forward to during training camp is to see those wide receivers out there, see how differently they perform from the others. Marvin Mims, though, slated as somebody who plays a whole lot bigger than he actually is. It'll be really interesting to see how Sean Payton utilizes all those bodies. Samuel Castro also saying, I know one thing, Sean Payton is going to have a lot of different personnel packages on every play. It almost seems like anything coming out of the Broncos camp right now is a surprise to everyone involved. I would not be shocked to be absolutely blown away by what we see here in the start of the season. Could you imagine being blown away in a good way and not in a what the hell did I just witness?
Oh, please.
Let's go into the losers round. And I mean this so very nicely. I love that banner.
Yeah, you gotta, thank you, but you gotta defend yourself on this.
I gotta defend myself, and I am so sorry, you guys. It's actually more so in defense of the fans of this team, because it hasn't been fair to you. Broncos country has been tasked with what I feel is an impossible ask. You're refraining from consumption of all information of your favorite team all off season in a concerted effort by Sean Payton. Somehow the winning formula is to keep everything under wraps and within the confines of the organization, limit the reach of media, control the chaos that surrounds any given NFL team. Looking at you, Hard Knocks. In an off season that should be filled with speculation, because, you know, that's what we do. It feels like the fans are in this weird middle ground. So they're supposed to be clamoring for every detail. That's why they're a fan of the team. It's why podcast, radio, media consumption exists. And you want to squeeze the life out of the fruit that exists here for the fandom. But let's talk about the limitations that exist here. Berm capacity limits. And I'm not talking about tweet restricted limits that you find yourself on Twitter, white helmet chaos, because that's what we've been devolved to. What exactly makes Sean Payton click? I don't know it. I don't have the answers. I have to squeeze it out of people. So let's give them something to talk about, right? No, give them nothing and they can eat their cake sometime after a wild card berth because the requirement is coming due right now. The Broncos have to be in front of the media now as we go into training camp, and it's a wait and see game. How much of a glimpse is Sean Payton going to let this fandom get to actually actualize? I assume there's going to be limitations on podium time for players, and it's ultimately going to culminate in the regular season paydays. We'll have tons to talk about once the games start, once there's reports on practices, once there's actually something happening on that field. But if the Broncos win 3 of their first 4 games, do we care? Do we care about any of the limitations that have been placed on the fandom, on the media? I think we should, because the ability to offer coverage to the fans, to ourselves, it's under deep, deep, deep coverage and not shaking the shackles off of Peyton anytime soon. So as long as he's in Denver, this is what the fandom is going to have to deal with. This is what Broncos country is going to have to deal with. But if the Broncos are in the playoffs or in contention for the playoffs, do the fans care? I want to know. Because in the age of information, I care.
I don't think they do. I think I get the frustration. And I think as a member of the media, my answer should be like, yes, they do care. We need this access. We need this everything. I mean, I think it's all kind of silly. I don't think we need the access to do it just as someone who is even on the beat. Like, I'm telling you, I've been in these under the sun for these hot training camp practices. And the first year on the beat, I'm like trying to take notes. I'm like, oh my God, how are people observing anything? Like, how are we really learning anything? We're at field level, so it's hard to even, you're not up on the hill where you kind of have a top-down perspective. It's like we can't really see anything. They're intentionally using players to like block our viewpoints. And it's practice. So it's just, we don't know what's being called. We don't know like what the miscues are. It's so hard to take like anything meaningful. It's not impossible, but it's so hard to take anything meaningful away from these things that I don't think the reduction in coverage moves the needle too much, or like the reduction in access moves the needle too much in terms of the coverage we can provide. I think we can still provide strong coverage without that access. Just got to be a little sneakier and a little more creative with it.
Who will be accessing training camp in the weeds, hiding behind a planter? That'll be me. So look for me out there. I can't hide very well.
That, and then I also think, but then I think it's silly on the Sean Payton end of it too, to try to control it, to try and lock it down. I don't think whether the Broncos win 10 games next year or 9 games next year is getting determined by like locker room quotes. I don't think it matters all that much. It's the way he wants to do it. A lot of these coaches really love control. I get that. It's how they've achieved to this point in life. I don't know. I don't think it will matter too much in either direction, but it sucks for the fans if the team isn't winning. Then it is all just downside. If it's so long as the team is winning, who cares about the access, but they better win.
I'm willing to set it all aside. And if they're winning, do your thing, Sean Payton. I think just right now we're all a little hesitant to know exactly what's going to happen there. But thanks for letting me get that off my chest. I know it doesn't bother everyone as much as it bothers me, but goodness, I'd like some news. Samuel Castro said, I'm speaking for myself as a lifelong Broncos fan. We've been spoiled with a winning culture until these last few years, but we need to get back to winning and being a contender again. I think every single fan in Broncos country echoes your sentiments, Samuel, because it needs to turn itself around. Sean Payton is the best shot at it happening anytime soon. So let's get into the other losers from the offseason. This one hurts my feelings a little bit. Let's talk about it.
Josie Jewell. I think Josie Jewell, unfortunately, is a huge loser of this offseason. And we could have talked about some bigger losers, but I don't want to like hammer the Russell Wilson stuff a million times, or like Lloyd Cushenberry a million times, or just some of these things. I feel like we haven't talked a lot about Josie Jewell this offseason, and he's in a very tough spot now. Alex Singleton signed a big money extension, and then they spend one of their top draft picks on Drew Sanders, the inside linebacker. And Josie Jewell's contract is expiring after this season. That's trouble. That spells trouble for Josie Jewell, unfortunately. And it's a shame. I think he's been a terrific linebacker for the Broncos. I think he's consistently been one of the most underrated Denver Broncos throughout his tenure. But it's really hard to see him sticking around after this season. I think the one way that might be achievable is if they determine that Drew Sanders isn't an inside linebacker at the next level and would be best suited on the edge. Inside linebacker is, as of right now, the Broncos' deepest position. Edge is maybe the most questionable. It's definitely in the conversation to be the most questionable. It's not crazy to think that maybe they pull another Baron Browning and take Drew Sanders and try him on the edge.
Well, we saw how well that worked out. The fans were in an uproar when Baron Browning was even hinted at moving positions. You can't just switch players around without giving it a little bit of time, but I believe Drew Sanders is versatile enough that that wouldn't be too crazy. What's the final nail in the coffin that would denote Josie Jewell being a easily moved on from piece? And I'm trying to frame that as well as possible. I do love the coupling of Jewell and Singleton, but there are a couple of things that would point to his departure.
Yeah, I mean, Alex Singleton's contract is paying him, I think, $9 million per year, which is a lot. That makes him one of the higher paid starting linebackers. Wait, I don't think I'm right on that $9 million figure. Goodness, if Spot Rack would load, that would be so great. Yeah, or $6 million. Sorry, it was 18, but it's over 3 years, not 2. So $6 million a year. It's good starting linebacker money. And again, just the pick investment in Drew Sanders. You're going to want to play that guy. How do you get that guy onto the field? Is it as an edge replacement for Randy Gregory? Maybe. I think that's the less likely outcome. I think it's a possible one. I think it's very likely that this time next year he's playing over Josie Jewell. Even if that doesn't happen, though, Josie Jewell's contract is coming up. Are you going to get another high-paid linebacker slotted next to Alex Singleton and have one of the more expensive starting linebacker tandems in the league? Or are you going to elevate a Jonas Griffith or a Drew Sanders? I'd say probably the latter. I would be surprised if this isn't Josie Jewell's last season in Denver, unfortunately. And I love me some Josie Jewell, but I do think this offseason was a bad break for him.
Last question on the inside linebacker realm. With the valuation of the position at inside linebacker, and with the Broncos having what I would say a pretty bolstered unit there, with having at least a depth of players that could start in the starting position if they absolutely had to. You're not seeing that a whole lot. You obviously spoke on how you could move those pieces around. Does it concern you that the inside linebackers are the most fortified unit on the team, on the defense?
Definitely. I think you can look at the Colts as a team just last year, right? Flamed out at 3-13. Where are their best players? Running back, guard, linebacker. And the Broncos aren't built this extremely. Obviously they have a premium player at cornerback who's absolutely magnificent. I think they've got some really good wide receiver talent. That's a premium position. But if you build too much through these non-premium positions, and I'd say, the strength of the offensive line is at guard. Strength of the defense is probably linebacker and safety, which are the less premium positions. Your stars are just going to struggle more to impact the game or to take over a game. Just the impact's limited at those positions. So if those are where your superstars are, it's harder to rely on your superstars to save the day for you.
Let's go to the other side of the spectrum. Samuel Castro had a question about what do you think they do with Nick Benito? Obviously, not a tremendous showing last season, 1.5 sacks for Benito. Started one game, if I remember correctly, but obviously needs to reach potential or at least close to potential in this upcoming season. Although I don't believe he's going to get a whole lot of starter work, knock on wood. We have seen the injury bug take down the Denver Broncos in previous seasons. I would hope that you would see marginal improvement from Nick Benito. Zach, what do you think, and how do you think the Denver Broncos work with Benito moving into this upcoming season?
Am I muted? No. Okay. Sorry. I was pulling up stats and I wanted to make sure. So I'm curious about Benito. I think he does have he'll still be in the mix as a designated pass rusher. I think the question is, can he grow beyond that? Last year, I think two of the most impressive rookie edge rushers were James Houston IV, late rounder undrafted guy that went to Detroit, and Aiden Hutchinson, who of course won Defensive Rookie of the Year. If you look at pass rush win rate among rookies with at least 100 pass rush reps, or sorry, at least 90. It goes James Houston IV is first with a 19% pass rush win rate. Then Cam Thomas, 15.9, Aiden Hutchinson at 12.4, Kingsley Enigbare, who also was pretty good for Green Bay last year, at 11.5, and then Nick Benito at 11.2. And then right behind Benito is Jermaine Johnson and Kayvon Thibodeau, who showed good stuff. Trayvon Walker, the #1 overall pick. Sam Williams, who showed some good stuff. George Karlaftis, who showed some good stuff. So there is something there with him as a pass rusher. I just want to see it in a greater sample size because the sample was very limited last year. And we also have to see if he can impact the run, because if he's just going to be a passing down only player, that's going to limit his long-term value.
Key rotational piece at best. I think that is at least hopeful, and it could serve well. Yes.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but I think the ideal, like if I'm a Broncos fan, what am I hoping Nick Benito becomes? I think you're hoping like Bronco Shaq Barrett. Not what Shaq Barrett became in Tampa Bay, where he's leading the NFL in sacks. That's a little lofty, but like that ace rotational pass rusher. If you think back to like 2015, 2016, when he was just so awesome in that rotation with DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller, and then you had Barrett come off and bring you some heat later in the downs. I think that's what you're hoping Nick Benito could be, that star rotational guy. And if he becomes an every down player, that's gravy.
Did you say gravy?
Yeah. Like that's
what's your favorite type of gravy?
I mean, I like it all. I love a good Thanksgiving, like brown gravy, but I definitely, my dad's from the South, so I love some good, like biscuits and gravy, some like cream gravy. It's all good.
I was absolutely going to ask if you could make us all biscuits and gravy for our next LTB vacation. No question of the day, because nobody got it in time. Zach, where can everybody find your work?
Yeah, everyone, please go over to YouTube. Let's Talk Broncos. Support us over there. We got a lot of cool stuff in the works. And then as we get ready for this upcoming season, we've been preparing for this for months, and cannot wait to share with you guys what we have. And then over on Twitter at Zach_Seegers, over on Threads at Zach Seegers, all one word. I got to get my Threads game up. But follow me. And yeah, thank you, everybody. Have a good day. Bree, where can they find your amazing work?
Threads is dead, man. Like the newness has worn off. Nobody's even posting over there. I just post my personal life and the weird stuff that comes to the top of my head. I'm just tweeting or threading it, posting it. Who knows? Thread's dead, man. Stick on Twitter. Follow me, BreeMaestis303. You can find all my work over there as well. You can catch me on the Fan Cave if you like listening to my voice, 1 to 2 p.m. on Mondays. Pretty cool announcement coming up. I'll let you know more about it on another time. We'll talk to you guys later, and I'll be on Let's Talk Draft tomorrow. I totally forgot about that. I didn't forget it, but I want y'all to tune in. So it'll be same bat channel. Go on over to The LTB show is all gravy. Great. I want to
Thank
know
you,
what I'm
Sam.
smothering. Thank you, Samuel Castro. Catch you on another time. See y'all soon. Bye, Broncos country.
Go Broncos.